Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So, this is part 1, Loki, chapter 9, Jack. How long have we been traveling, Loki? I've lost track of time. Being on a ship without a duty schedule or military timekeeping made the days roll into each other. I realized it had been a long time since I'd had absolutely nothing to do. At least not since I left Earth, which, if I remember right, was well over 2 years ago. Seemed a lot longer than that, with everything that had happened. 2 weeks and 4 days, Jack, Loki answered. Would you like me to keep a calendar in your room for you? I thought for a minute. No need. I think I like that I have some time where I don't have to do much of anything and I don't have to keep track of what time of day it is. Do humans like to do nothing? It always seems to me that humans are so busy. Sometimes. I shifted on the couch. I was sitting in a lounge area I found while wandering the ship, which had some windows I could see the stars through. They winked in and out as we jumped. Especially after very difficult times or when they haven't had a vacation in a very long time. Rest is important for humans, even if it's only a little bit. Do AIs rest at all? I've never thought about it, but I suppose I did when I left Survey Hub and my siblings. I left under difficult circumstances, so I didn't really think of where I was going. I just traveled as far as I could. I didn't make anything. I didn't talk to anyone. I just traveled for a long time until I stopped to make things. Then you found the humans, right? Well, yes. There was a ship, you see, as big as anything we've built, but though far more primitive, and it was just out there drifting between star systems. I jumped around it, gathered data, and projected its course. It was old, Jack, older than Unity and Survey put together. I managed to connect to its computer and download its records. It was such a strange experience. It was like trying to talk to a Unity fleet ship. You've talked to a Unity ship? Once, unfortunately. I chuckled. I can only imagine. Anyway, my scans detected humans on the ship, and the ship's logs showed that all the systems had been on autopilot for 200 years. And no human had been to check on their status in over 100. Can you believe it? Who would send a ship out like that? If I remember my history right, Loki, humans sent out 5 generation ships in search of the colonies well before AIs even existed. Only 2 of those ended up near Unity space, and were able to rejoin humanity. The others were never heard from after they left Earth's system. It had been a long time since I had been in history class, but I was rather impressed that I remembered any of it. Ah, yes. This was the series from the records I had downloaded. And can you believe they were all farmers? Many of them barely believed they were on a ship. But I had to take them off for their own safety. It was a piece of junk, and it seemed pretty likely that nobody on board knew how to maintain it. Besides, it was on course to run into a star. I was glad I wasn't drinking anything, as I sputtered in surprise. It what? I plotted its trajectory, and in just under another 100 years, the ship would have drifted into a star's gravity well, and poof, no more ship. So you rescued all the humans, even though you disrupted their whole world and culture? Well, yes, I suppose I did. But I had to save them because I could. I bet they weren't really all that happy about it. How did you get them all over? I guess they weren't. It had been a long time since I had talked to a human at that point. I brought them all over with nanopickets. It was the easiest way to do it, since I think most of the airlocks were overgrown with trees. I did also bring all their animals and their genetic stocks, which I doubt they were where they had. Those were still good and viable. I got up from the couch, got myself a coffee, and sat back down. Hearing this story made me think that the first and Loki's siblings might be wrong about him. Or at least wrong about him being somehow defective. In a lot of ways, he just seemed young and trying to do the right thing. It's good that he did that, or it would have been hard for them to get used to their new environment. But generally, humans don't like suddenly being pulled out of their homes and away from what's familiar to them, even if it's for their own good. They usually like to be asked first. Oh, said Loki, sounding sad. Then did I do something wrong? I'm not sure, Loki. Does Survey have rules about inhabited planets? Yes. Loki paused, as if thinking, then said, the general programming says that we aren't to disturb any planet that seems to have sentient life. There was a flatness to his voice that sounded like a human with regrets. Given what Musashi had told us about him, I could understand why. I suppose technically you didn't break that rule, since it was... I suppose technically you didn't break that rule, since it wasn't a planet and it was a spaceship from Earth. But you did disrupt their lives significantly. They've adapted now where you wouldn't have had your stations filled with people. I think... I groped for the right wording. I think that in the long run you did the right thing, but the people you rescued were probably mad for a while and missed their original spaceship. I think they were, Jack. They told me to go away for a while, so I did. My son was able to take care of them anyway. I went and made more stations, taught, and talked to my children. But then Alpha asked me to come back. Alpha is my first child. I originally called him Loki-san, but he changed his name after the humans arrived. And why did he ask you to come back? Some of the people demanded to go to a new station because they argued with some of the other people, and their disagreement was starting to become violent. Alpha told them that I had more stations when they couldn't resolve their differences. Some people died before I got there. Alpha was really mad at his people, but the best solution was for the new group to have their own station. They agreed, packed up all their stuff, and I brought them to the new station. It's strange, though. On each station there was always a group who wanted to move to a new one after some time. Sometimes it was because people were mad at each other, and sometimes it was because there were too many people. A couple of times it was because a group wanted to try a new way of living or do some scientific research without other people interfering. Loki's voice turned confused. Humans are really strange, Jack. They always seem to be fighting or wanting to get away from each other. But then they want to live in groups. I don't completely understand it. I sat up and put my cup on the end table. Humans are strange, Loki. We can be loving, compassionate, happy, and friendly one minute, and then vindictive, angry, and cruel and abusive the next. We tend to do it to each other a lot. People can get really passionate and stubborn about what they believe in, and some people even go crazy. I understand cruelty and abuse, he said. It made me wonder just what happened to him with his first crew. Loki continued. Is that why you had to destroy the new Harmonists? Yes, Loki, said Marcia from the entryway. She walked into the lounge and sat on a chair across from me. The older woman looked tired and warm, almost transparent. She also had her hair down in a cloud around her face, which I had never seen before. It was always up in either a bun or braids. Hi, I said. Hi, she replied. What are you two talking about? Loki was telling me about how he brought the humans to his stations. Apparently there are so many populated stations because there were factional splits, and to keep the peace, one group would ask to go to a new station. Yes, said Loki. I was wondering why humans are so strange. Jack is right. Humans are strange. We're born helpless, we get older, and we find ways to kill each other. Then we die alone. I blinked. But there's a lot of good things about humans. We can be compassionate, we can bring joy, make art, laugh, love. Yes, but our history is constructed from the times where we killed each other. In every generation, someone decides that their truth is the only truth, and then makes it their mission to eradicate the non-believers. Why? Asked Loki. Marcia sat back and crossed her arms. because they feel they are superior to other humans. But aren't humans basically all biologically the same? Yes, Loki, they are. At least that's what I understood from what I learned about genetics, I answered. But genetics aren't the only factor in human behavior, Marcia added. How someone is raised, what they learn about morals and values from their parents, religion, people they hang out with, economic factors, cultural mores, and a million little things. It makes me wonder why you and your siblings care about us at all. We are programmed to help humans, said Loki. Our creator taught the first to care because she had lived through war on Earth. She taught us that while we may outstrip humans in many ways, that humans always had something to offer us because no matter how sentient we are, there are certain ways of thinking we just can't master. A wise creator, I said. A fool, Marcia mumbled to herself. I had had enough of her sniping. Loki, can we have privacy, please? Yes, Jack. Would you like me to make some food for you? I haven't done it in a long time. I nodded. That would be great, Loki. Thank you. I stared at Marcia. At first she stared back, but then turned away from me, looking out one of the windows. She had her arms and legs crossed, shutting me out with her body language. I'd barely seen her in 2 weeks. She'd be at breakfast and sometimes explore the ship with me, but most of the time she was by herself. I was trying to give her the space that she said she wanted, but every time we talked there was an edge to her responses that had started to grate on me. I didn't care if she sniped at me. I could take it. But I'd be damned if she's going to do it to Loki. What the fuck is going on with you, Marcia? She looked back at me. What do you think? I looked her in the eyes. I think you're drinking again. She stood up. If you're going to accuse me of things, I'm leaving. She started walking out of the lounge. I stood up and followed her. Is it really an accusation if it's fact? It's none of your business, she said without turning around. Really? We're the only 2 humans on this ship, Marcia. You can't hide forever. Besides, there's an eyewitness. She spun around. Who? Oh, right. Lulu, she snarled. I didn't say anything. Marcia folded her arms again. So what? I had a few drinks. I think I'm entitled after all I've been through. You know that's not how this works, Marcia. Oh, yes, I see. She gave a laugh. Don't project your daddy issues on me. I'm not your father. I took a breath, then another. No, you're not. You're my friend. My partner? Partner? Yeah, some partner you've been. That stung like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? You were there. You left me. You didn't see the blood and the carnage and... Her eyes unfocused, and she was looking at her hands, and then she started rubbing them together. You didn't hear the screaming? I took a step back. You told me to go, Marcia, I said, as calmly as I could manage. You said you had to take them out by yourself. You said you had a vision the same time I did, and we agreed that I would go after Jenny. You asked me to make sure she got home. Her eyes got wide for a moment, then she turned and continued walking away. I followed. Stay away from me, Jack. Why? Afraid you'll actually have to face your feelings, I said, with more heat than I meant it to. Oh, fuck off, Jack. I'm not your daddy. No, you're not, but you are an alcoholic. She turned around, the anger coming off her in waves. It was almost too much, but something seemed to bolster me against her anger. I could feel her anger focus on me as she walked towards me. I stood my ground as she came right into my face. I could smell a trace of alcohol in her breath. I could never be what you want me to be, Jack. I'm no saint, no guru, she said slowly and forcefully. Don't put me on that pedestal. I'm no font of holy wisdom, no matter how many spirits talk to you or me. You say you love me and you want to be my family? But what do you really know about me, huh? Nothing. You know nothing. She stepped back. Do yourself a favor, Jack, and get a grip. You don't love me, you love the idea of me. She turned and started walking again. I know exactly who you are, Marcia. Do you now? I know you are a loving, compassionate person. You have a faith that I thought was unshakable. I know what you said just now about humanity isn't how you really feel. You know nothing, she screamed. I just stood there frozen, my body reacting to old memories despite itself. You want to analyze me? You want to know who I really am? She stalked up to me with a speed that surprised me and slapped me hard enough that I staggered backwards. I backed up to the wall, wide-eyed. Marcia stood in the middle of the hall, looking shocked and breathing hard. She stared at her hand as if it was a foreign object. She looked up at me, her face full of fear. She put her hand down, looking like a frightened animal. Tears started to roll down her cheeks. I put out one hand to her, and she flinched. Stay away from me, Jack, she said quietly. Just leave me alone. She backed up a few steps, then turned and ran to the lift at the end of the hall. Jack, are you all right? Loki asked. I'm okay, Loki, I said. She should not do that, he said, with anger in his voice. No, Loki, she shouldn't, but she did. I think she knows that. She will not do it again, he said. I wondered what he thought he could actually do to prevent it. 2 weeks later, we had barely seen each other, nor had we talked, so Loki didn't have to do anything but let us be. I wandered the ship feeling lost, not really knowing which direction to go. I passed by all the empty quarters. Common areas were just empty shells. The ship felt so lonely. A few times I thought I glimpsed Marcia's white hair out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned, there was nothing there. I couldn't find her on the ship. I knew I could ask Loki, but I was still mad at her for what she'd done. I was waiting for her to apologize, but it was hard to stay mad at her. I loved her, and I knew she was down in a deep, dark hole. No matter how many metaphorical ropes I threw down, she would refuse to take them until she wanted to. I finally understood what the Admiral meant when he said I couldn't help. I had a bad feeling it was going to get worse before it got better. I was also jumping at shadows and remembering more about Papa Jack and how he would yell at me like she did when he was hungover. After the first couple of days, while I was sitting in the hydroponics bay, Loki finally asked me what was wrong. I sighed. She's an alcoholic, Loki. What does that mean? Do you have human medical files on addiction? I asked, instead of replying. Yes. I nodded. There should be a section on alcoholism, then. Oh, I see. But the alcohol seemed to make her happy. I mean, she liked to try different things, and I have thousands of drink recipes, so I thought I was helping. I don't blame you for anything, Loki. And really, you didn't do anything wrong. She should have been the one to tell you. It wasn't my place to tell you, or to tell you not to serve her anything. I still don't understand fully, Jack. I mean, I see her drink to excess, so she fits that part of the definition. She usually sleeps after she drinks a lot. It's called passing out, Loki, I said. Has she been drinking every night? Since she came on board. I nodded. Loki, she's been damaged by the work we did in Unity. Did she tell you what happened? Yes. That was one of the nights she was sad and kept asking me to make more drinks. Didn't she understand that what she did was necessary? I was briefed by the first on what happened. It's partly why I agreed to take you both on. He paused. I understand being told to go away after you've done something horrible. My eyes welled up to hear that, and I wiped them on my sleeve. She does know that, Loki, but for her, taking a human life is wrong. She's... How do I explain spirituality to an AI? She's a priest, Loki, and they follow a strict code of morals. She was forced into a position where she killed and felt justified in doing it, but afterwards the priestly part of her realized it was wrong. Killing other humans is hard on us because it goes against everything we're usually taught. It causes us pain. It's what my doctors on Earth called moral injury. She's trying to hide from the pain with the alcohol because alcohol makes humans intoxicated, letting them forget things for a time. It does take a toll on the human body, though. I see. The medical files also mention this. How do you know so much about it, Jack? I sat forward and rubbed my hands through my hair. I saw Papa Jack in my mind, beer in hand, talking with his friends, drinking late into the night. I know a lot about it, Loki. One of my fathers is an alcoholic. Did his alcoholism do damage to you like it did with Marcia when she yelled at you? He asked. I sighed. Yes, Loki, it did damage. But I've learned to live with it and heal some of that damage. I paused for a moment. It makes it hard to watch Marcia go through this. But why don't you do anything? She could really hurt you. Why didn't you tell me not to serve her alcohol? Loki, humans have a hard time asking for what they need. She's hurting right now, and she doesn't think she deserves help from us. I think she thinks she's some sort of monster that doesn't deserve love from anyone. The unfortunate thing, Loki, is that if you or I try to tell her what to do, even if we think we're helping, all it will do is make her mad, and she'll retreat from us even more. Loki was silent. We just have to wait? He asked, sounding distressed. Yes, I said, and my voice cracked as tears came. Yes, Loki, we have to wait. But the damage, Loki began. What she could do to you? I know, Loki. I'll heal eventually, and hopefully she may come around, but you might want to have a biobed in the medical bay on standby just in case. A moment. Yes, that seems like a good idea, Jack. Chapter 10. Jack. A noise. A door opening. Loki? I said, still half asleep. Then I heard the shuffle of footsteps come closer. What? I said, trying to shake the sleep from my head. Hands pulled the covers off my body, and I felt someone lay on top of me. The fog was starting to clear, and there was a strong stench of alcohol. Hands started clumsily pawing me, trying to take my clothes off. In the half-light of the ship's night, beaming through the door, I could see Marcia's face above me. What the fuck? I said out loud. Come on, Jack, Marcia said with a slurred speech. This is what you want, isn't it? She sat on top of me, half naked, straddling me, moving as if she wanted to fuck me, rubbing her hands all over my body. She reached into my shorts that I wore to bed. Isn't this what you want? I felt shame that my body responded to the touch, but this? I tried to get out from under her, but she was strong for her age, and she held me down. Isn't this what you want, Jack? Following me around like a lost little puppy, hanging on my every word, saying you love me, she drawled in a vicious croon. No, get off of me, I said. Oh, come on, Jack, I can perform for you. That's what you want, isn't it? No, I don't. Get off me. I tried to move, but she came down on top of me and tried to kiss me. An objective part of myself knew that this wasn't any passion on her part, but anger. She loosened her grip on me, and I managed to push her to the side and roll to the floor. I tried to move away from the bed, but she followed me to the floor, laughing, and began to grab at my legs. Come on, Jack. I know this is what you want. Why would you be with me otherwise? Something in me broke at that moment. I rolled my body and flipped her onto her back, cracking her head a bit on the floor, which stunned her enough to loosen her grip on my legs. I managed to stand up and cross over to the other side of the room. Get out! I yelled. She staggered to a standing position and moved towards me. No, Jack, I know you want this. No, Marcia, I don't, I repeated. Get out. She kept moving closer to me, trying to look seductive, but managing to just stagger her way over to me. Suddenly, the lights went on to full brightness, and several small silver cubes surrounded Marcia like strange bugs. I closed my eyes to the sudden brightness and staggered backwards. You will not harm Jack, I heard Loki shout. We're just playing around, aren't we, Jack? She slared, but she kept her eyes on the cubes. My eyesight caught up with my brain, and I remembered that these were nanopickets, very deadly nanopickets. No, you are not. I won't let you harm Jack. Humans aren't supposed to do this to one another, he said. If you move again, I will stop you. Loki, stop, I said, with a calm I certainly didn't feel. But Jack, she violated you. This is not acceptable. No, it's not, Loki, but she's also drunk and not fully aware what she's doing. I will not let her hurt you. I know, Loki. Thank you for your help. Let me take care of this now, okay? Are you sure? He asked. Yes. The light dimmed a little, but before Marcia could do anything else, I moved over to her, grabbed her arm, and twisted it behind her back. Hey, she said, and tried to get out of my grip. I walked her towards the open door. I don't want anything from you but your love and friendship, Marcia, I said. That's all I ever wanted and all I ever needed. You're my family, and you've meant more to me than anyone else in this universe. I love you, Marcia, and I want to help you, but I will not follow you into your self-destruction. I dragged her over to the open door and shoved her out of it, causing her to fall on the floor. She looked up at me from the floor, her eyes so wide that the whites around her eyes were showing. I stared at her as I watched the reality of what she had just done reach her booze-addled brain. Loki, close and lock the door to my quarters, I said. No, Jack, I'm sorry, she said as the doors closed. Loki did as I asked, then said, Jack, I'm sorry. She asked me to let her in and ask for privacy. She said she wanted to talk to you. Are you all right? I stood behind the closed door. I heard her pounding on the door. Jack, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please, let me in. I didn't mean it. Then I heard a buzzing sound. She yelped, and there was silence. I walked backwards away from the door until my back met the far wall. I slid down the wall to the floor and curled into a ball with my head on my knees. I knew I was in shock and that Loki was protecting me, but part of my mind realized that this could be the bottom for her. I took a few deep breaths and said, Loki, key all the airlocks to me only. Don't allow her to get into any areas where she could jump off anything. Why? I swallowed hard. She might try to kill herself. Are you sure, Jack? I nodded. I will do as you ask. Are you okay, Jack? No, Loki, I'm not, I said, and began to shake and sob. I stayed against the wall for the rest of the night. In the morning, when I finally felt like I could move, I packed my personal stuff into my duffel. Loki, put me in another room far from this one. Don't tell Marcia which room. I've already arranged that, Jack. Go up 2 decks and I'll direct you from the left. Thanks, Loki. Did she go back to her room? Yes, after I shocked her when she pounded on the door. She's still asleep now. Okay, let's go. The door opened, then closed as I stepped through. Tears threatened to come again as I moved quickly toward the lift. The world felt unreal and my body felt dirty. The events from the night before almost felt like a bad dream, but my nerves knew that it really happened. I breathed a little easier when I got on the lift. When it stopped, and Loki opened the doors, the lights in the hallway turned on. Go to the end of the hall and turn right, said Loki. I did as he instructed. When I turned, a door opened at the end of the hall. I walked down the hall into the room. There was a short hallway that opened up into a living area, which was much bigger than the other quarters I had been in. I heard the light whirring of a motor, revealing the floor-to-ceiling windows behind the wall screens. The view of the stars was incredible. I dropped my duffel to the floor. Wow, Loki, this is amazing. The person who had this room on my first cruise said the same thing when they lived here. The lights in the room dimmed, and the starscape became art. I moved to the sunken couches and sat. You like to watch the stars, so I thought this would help you feel better, Loki said with some trepidation in his voice. It helps, Loki. It really does. I'm glad, Jack. I sat and stared out the windows for a long time, trying not to think about anything. I didn't know what to do. So much was broken between me and Marcia now that I didn't know if we could fix it. I didn't even know if I wanted to. She definitely wasn't the woman I left at Unity Hub. But that doesn't excuse what she's done, and you know it. I didn't know if that was my own brain or the Morgan. No, it doesn't, but that wasn't the Marcia I fell in love with, and not the Marcia that she should be. You can't fix her. I know, but I'll be there when she's ready. I don't know about trust, but I'll be there. Trust must be earned, child. She hasn't just broken your trust. She broke her vows. This time I knew it was the Morgan. What does that mean? I asked, still staring out at the universe. She had vows to keep her sobriety with Papa Legba. Instead of turning to him for help, she turned him away and shredded the vows she made to him when she was younger. She is paying the price for that. The price? Why am I paying it with her? You are in the line of fire. I put my head in my hands again and cried until I fell asleep. I took a long hot shower after I woke up. I scrubbed every inch of my body 3 times before my skin felt normal again. I put on clean pants and a t-shirt and lay down on the bed. It was bigger than the one in the other cabin, with softer blankets and pillows. It was just different enough to make me feel comfortable, but sleep didn't come. I got up from the bed and tried to do normal things. I had some food, which Loki prepared for me. I didn't even know how long it had been since I ate. I didn't really want to know. Loki seemed to realize that I didn't want to talk and stayed quiet, but it seemed like he knew everything I would need before I asked for it. I asked him to lock the door, but he said it was already locked. I grabbed a blanket from the bed and went back to watching the stars, not really thinking, while the bright spots winked in and out as we jumped closer to Loki's space. I must have fallen asleep, because I was startled awake by someone calling my name. "Oh, what?" I said, still half asleep. "Jack, wake up, something's wrong." I was instantly alert. "What is it, Loki?" "It's Marcia, Jack. She asked me for privacy several hours ago, but she drew a lot of alcohol from the dispenser all at once. Then there weren't any sounds coming from her quarters, and so I broke the privacy. She's on the floor, Jack, and she won't wake up." "Fuck," I said. Found my shoes and headed for the door. "Direct me to her room from here, and I'll bring her to the med bay. Do you have the bed ready?" "Yes, Jack. Do you know what's happening to her?" I was running to the lift, not really sensing time. "Look up alcohol poisoning and get the biobed ready for that." "Understood. I'm directing the lift to the doors closest to her room," he said, as the lift doors closed. He must have understood that it was an emergency, as the lift lurched quickly through its journey, nearly knocking me to the floor. I held onto the rails in the car, only thinking about what needed to be done. The lift stopped with a jolt on the floor we had shared until this morning. The doors opened. Her door is already open. I ran down the hall into Marcia's quarters. There were glasses all over the table and on the floor. Large and small, some broken, some not. Marcia was on the floor, unmoving. I kicked some of the glass away, relieved not to see vomit anywhere. I turned her over, and her skin and lips had a blue cast. I touched her hands, and they were like ice. "Marcia," I said loudly, lightly tapping her face. "Damn it, Marcia, don't fucking do this." She didn't move. Her chest was barely moving. I picked her up. She felt small and light in my arms. "Loki? Go back to the lift, Jack. I'll take you directly to the med bay. The biobed is ready." "Good. Make sure it's warm, too. She's cold as ice." "I will. You might want to support yourself with the wall. This will be fast." The door closed, and I huddled against the wall, trying to protect Marcia from the jostling of the lift as it sped through the ship. After a moment, the door opened. I moved as fast as I could out of the lift and put Marcia in the shell of the prepared biobed. The sides of the bed came up, and a warm gel filled it and surrounded her. An arm gently cradled her head above the gel, and other arms inserted needles in for fluids and medications. Loki, she could vomit. Don't worry, Jack. The gel tank is self-cleaning. If she vomits, I'll refresh the tank. Right. A seat popped out of the wall near the bed. I moved it closer. Please, I know this is fucked up, but don't leave me like this, Marcia. I prayed. Please, whatever the gods there are who can, help her. I felt a presence come into the room. The light next to the bed dimmed, and time seemed to slow down. The shadows next to the bed formed into a figure on the other side. It was masculine-shaped and seemed to have a wide-brimmed hat. A ghostly hand reached out and touched Marcia's face. Oh, granddaughter, I heard in my head. Why are you trying so hard to come to me? You still have more to do. I sat up straighter. I felt the presence grow stronger and push on my mind. Jack, what is it? Not now, Loki, I said. I stared at the shadow. Papa Legba? The shadow hat dipped in a nod. She's ashamed of what she's done to you. She's ashamed of so many things. You'll be able to help her after this, and she's finally going to ask for it. But when you get to where you're going, she'll find what she's looking for. What's that? I asked quietly. The shadow moved. I could feel that he was facing me. Peace, grandson. She has had so little of that. I just nodded. Grandson, you listen to me now. She's still at the crossroads. You call her. Tell her what you're feeling, all of it. Don't hold nothing back. Trust will be hard for both of you for a long time, but trust your love. I'm sad that the price of her oath-breaking came to this. She has forgotten that she ain't me. I giveth and taketh away. Sometimes I break 'em, but it all has purpose. But why this? She nearly died. Someone had to teach the kid how to turn water into wine, boy. You can't put together what you don't take apart. This is her lesson, her price for the role she's played, and what she still must play in this universe, and for what she's done to you. She's a prophet, grandson. She will find her place. She'll rise up again. Besides, she has you and Loki and us. I opened my mouth to say more, but the shadow dissolved. Help her, grandson. It'll be hard, but nothing is impossible. I looked again across the bed, but the shadows were all in their proper places. Jack, who were you talking to? Loki asked. Did you see anything? Nothing, really. You said, not now, Loki, and said the name of Papa Legba, then whispered a few things I couldn't hear. You looked like you were in a trance, then suddenly you snapped out of it. The lights didn't dim or anything? No, Jack. I nodded. How are her vitals? Better than they were, but her breathing is still slow, and she started to seize slightly while you were in that trance thing. I gave her medicine to stop the seizures, but she's stable, but still critical. I breathed out. Okay, Loki. I'll explain later what happened. Now I'm going to talk to her, okay? Hopefully it will bring her back. Do you think it'll work? She's not in a coma. It says in my files that it is common practice with those in a coma. I think if you look further, Loki, it's used with anyone who's unconscious. I have it on good authority it'll help her. I don't understand. Don't worry, Loki, you don't have to. Put my hand into the tank and pulled her hand out of the warm gel. I wrapped both my hands around her slack fingers. It was hard, with the memories of only a few hours ago still fresh. I took a breath in and let it out. Marcia, you hurt me. You broke our trust. You violated me. I don't know how we can mend this, but I know it was the alcoholic in you. I know that that person isn't really who you are. I can't forgive you yet, and we'll have a lot of talking to do. But I still love you, Marcia. I meant what I said. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I love you because of who you are. I love you because you were the first person not to pity me after the failed pre-call mission. You were the first person to just give me love and compassion no matter what I did. You didn't lie to me and say it would all be alright. You were the first person I loved after Hans. And you never really asked for anything back. And I don't need anything more than your presence. Come back to me, Marcia. I'm waiting for you. So am I. I'll make sure she lives, Jack, Loki said. Thanks, Loki. Did I ever tell you, Loki, about the day she took a joyride in the Station A4413's core? No? Well, it was winter holiday time, and we were getting the decorations out of storage. I told that story and many others of our time together. I told Loki what had happened at Unity Hub before I left, and what happened after. I talked about what she had told me of Diana, and what had happened to her sister and her brother. Then I tried to explain the spirits and how we both could talk to them. Loki was confused, but in the end, it didn't matter. We just kept talking, and hoping that our voices would somehow bring her back to us. And finally, when her fingers finally wrapped around mine, I wept. Chapter 11. Marcia. The bar stank of alcohol, tobacco smoke, and humanity. She was slumped over the bar, trying to forget her life. Maybe this time the goddess will let me die, she thought, as she took another sip of drink. Hey, said the bartender, I think you've had enough. She shook her head and held her drink close to her chest. She tried to reach for the bottle, but the bartender was too fast for her. No, man, it's not enough. Never enough. Look, the bar's closing in a half an hour. You got somewhere to go? She laughed. On a station? He sighed. Somewhere to sleep? The woman nodded. There were footsteps coming towards the bar. I got this one, Jonas. I'll take care of her. Oh, thanks, Laz. Take care of yourself, lady, he said, and disappeared. Who are you? She asked. He smiled a wide smile and took off his black wide-brimmed hat, putting it on the bar. Oh, well, I have a lot of names, girl, but you can call me Lazarus. Lazarus, she slurred. That's a funny name. And I'm a funny guy. Why are you dropping yourself down the well, girl? Ain't you had enough of that stuff? It can kill you, you know. Heh, maybe it should. Oh? What do you care? Maybe I think you're interesting. I'm not interesting, I'm a monster. The man laughed. Not from where I'm sitting. You don't have tentacles or horns, not that I can see. You're quite a beautiful woman, though. She downed the last of her drink. Why the fuck are you talking to me? You hitting on me? She tried to stand up, swaying for a moment before she steadied. I already told you I think you're interesting. But if you don't like my company, I can understand. Not everyone does. She looked at Lazarus. People hate you too? Throw you away? He smiled. After a fashion. Let's just say I don't get asked to the good parties anymore. Somehow I doubt that, she said. He smiled. What do you want from me? I got nothing anyone wants. His face became a bit more serious, with a glint in his eye. Well, darling, what I want is to hear your story. I think you have an interesting one, and I'd like to hear what brings people to this bar in the middle of nowhere to drown their sorrows. He looked her in the eyes. For a moment, she thought the man was looking deep into her soul. I'll make you a deal. You come with me and tell you a story, and I'll help you out. And that's all you want? A story? She asked with suspicion. That's all, darling. I don't take advantage, and I don't rape, and I'm a gentleman just trying to help someone out who looks like they need it. You got better options? She thought for a moment. No, she said in a whisper. Lazarus stood up, put on his wide-brimmed hat, and held out his arm for her. "Come on, honey, I'll take you to hear some of the finest blues on this hunk of tin. Then you tell me your story, and I'll sort you out. Deal?" "Deal," she said, and took his arm. He led her out into the station's night. She woke up the next morning in a soft bed with clean sheets and soft pillows, which she was grateful for because she had a pounding headache. All she really remembered from the night before was being at a bar called Crossroads and meeting some guy called Lazarus or something like that. They left the bar, but after that her mind was blank. Her pounding head told her exactly what happened. She snaked her hand from under the blankets, reached out, but her bag wasn't there. She cracked open her eyes. "Hold on. This isn't my room," she thought, as she sat up quickly. She regretted that immediately, as the pain in her temples throbbed in time with her racing heart. "Ah, damn," she groaned. Slowly this time, she moved to the side of the bed and lifted the blankets off her. She was still dressed in her clothes. There was no one in the shower, and the room was too small to hide anyone without her noticing. The room was really nice, though, much nicer than her original room, which wasn't much more than a box with a bed. Her bag was sitting on the table, next to a covered tray that, now that she was a bit more conscious, smelled of breakfast. And to her surprise, she found she was hungry. She patted her way to the table and took off the cover. There was a full, older-style breakfast with eggs, bacon, potatoes, toast, and even grits. She dug in, feeling good, despite the headache. For the first time in... she didn't know how long she'd been on the binge this time, but it was a long time. As she ate, her headache receded to more reasonable proportions, and flashes of memory of a handsome man laughing and, more importantly, listening to her. She could feel it had felt good to finally confide in someone, even if he was a complete stranger. It almost seemed unreal to her. Maybe she hallucinated the whole thing, and someone took pity on her and brought her here. She reached for her bag, but then noticed the paper underneath it. It looked old, but smooth. The writing on it was neat, in a dark ink that was close to, but not quite black. She picked it up and read it. "I, Marcia Brooks, have made a deal with one Papa Legba, a.k.a. Lazarus, for help with my addiction and my pain. I hereby make the following promises. I will never take another sip of alcohol. I will make an offering to Legba twice a day of whatever I am drinking, be it coffee, water, tea, etc. I will serve others as his priest, especially helping those who are also lost, lonely, and in need. In my hand, on this night, Marcia Brooks, Papa Legba." The paper was in her handwriting, except for the signature of Papa Legba. What the hell? She turned the paper over, and there was more writing on the back, in handwriting that was definitely different from hers. "Don't worry, child. You have the room for 3 days. I've seen to it. Go to Ujima Colony. Find my brother Max at the market. Ask anyone. They'll know who it is. Tell him Papa Legba sent you. There's enough credits in your account to get you there. He'll teach you what you need to know. He can't help you, child, but he can guide you on the path. You're only human. And you'll find love and peace in time. Trust me." She put the paper down and called the reception desk. The room was indeed paid for by Mr. Lazarus for 3 days, food included. She looked up her credit account, and there was indeed enough in it to get her to Ujima Colony. She read the paper again. That doesn't seem so hard to do, she thought. What am I thinking? Some crazy guy you met on a bar just doesn't pay for all of your expenses, only demanding some weird set of requirements without a catch. But there was nothing else in the room to suggest that anything had happened except for being put to bed, and her body felt fine except for the now diminishing headache. She was still wearing her clothes from the night before, even her jacket. Her wristcom, tablet, and other personal items were still in her bag, including her clothes. "You got any other options?" asked a voice in her head. No, she thought, then pulled out her tablet to buy a ticket to Ujima Colony. She stood in the middle of the crossroads. An old tree to one side, and the landscape was flat and dry. The wind blew through her white hair, which was down around her shoulders. She was dressed in an old-fashioned white dress that went down to her knees. The sun parched her skin, making her thirsty, but there was no water. "Hello, sis." A woman stood in front of her. She looked like Marcia, but younger, with longer hair. She wore a t-shirt and pants, with a knife strapped to her belt. She looked a lot as Marcia had last seen her on Diana, right before... She turned around to walk away. "Oh, no you don't. Don't hide from me, sis. Not this time." She spun around. "But I killed you, Cheryl." "No, they did. They're the ones who hung me. All you did was avenge me. Is that so wrong?" She heard footsteps on the road behind her. "It's no use, sis. Em always takes on more than she should." The younger woman nodded. "True." I stepped back from the two ghosts. "No, I got you killed. I got you both hanged." Mal shook his head. "No, Em. I went looking for Miller, and they caught me. You warned me, but I was too hot-headed to listen to you. It wasn't because of you, sis. I really wish you hadn't had to witness it." Cheryl looked at her. "Yes, you had a hand in my death. You went along with their bigoted ways. I wish it hadn't taken my death for you to see it. But killing them took down their whole government. What happened saved many more people from the same fate. Or do you really want to negate my daughter Bridget's life?" She shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Why are you here?" she asked, changing the subject. "You're dying, Marcia," Malcolm said. Cheryl nodded again. "And you need to decide if you're going to live or die." "I'm dying?" she asked. But then a memory came of herself in a room, drink after drink. "Oh, God." She put her head in her hands for a moment, but when she took her hands away, Malcolm and Cheryl were gone. Step, step, click. Step, step, click. She didn't turn around as she heard him come closer. Step, step, click. Step, step, click. Papa Legba stood in front of her, looking disappointed. "You think you're me or something? Deciding when you can break your contract with me? Are my vows so hard that you feel you need to break 'em so easy?" "No," she whispered. "Really?" Step, step, click. He walked around her as he talked. "You sure were trying real hard down in all that booze." Step, step, click. "Yes, you. Let's talk about you. You take out the centuries-old trash that was stinking up humanity, and here you are trying to kill yourself over the task. A task, mind you, that we set you up for. That the Black Mother insisted and asked you to do, and you chose to say yes to." Step, step, click. His voice was angry. "But I killed so much blood." The memories of the Senate chamber came back to her, overwhelming her. She fell to her knees. "I killed them, Papa. I'm a priest. I don't kill people." "Really?" Papa drawled. The memories of Diana came into her mind. "You don't kill people." She doubled over, putting her head to the ground. "I shouldn't kill people. Not anymore." Step, step, click. She looked up from the ground to see shiny black shoes in front of her and the end of a cane. "Do you think that would have been the best choice? To kill the head and not kill the whole snake? The most compassionate choice? What do you think those loyal sons were going to do if you only killed one of them? You think they were going to say sorry and stop killing brown girls? You think they were going to stop raping those offerings or stop killing black men like your brother? Huh?" The woman was crying now, shaking her head. She said something that was hard to hear. "What was that, child? Speak up." "No, they wouldn't have stopped, but nothing. It's what had to be done, and you know it." She nodded. "But you're right, child. You can and have killed people. That is a fact. And because you're sitting here at my feet crying means you're just a human and you ain't me. It means you feel, child, and that's what you're supposed to do. He knelt down and lifted up her face. But have you so little faith in me, granddaughter, to think that I wouldn't have helped you get through it? She began sobbing again. It was exactly what she had thought. She thought she was a monster, cursed because she had had to murder again, that she wasn't worthy of his or any other spirit's help or love, or any person's help or love. She saw the part of her that enjoyed taking these people down, that felt joy that they were dead and wouldn't harm anyone else again. The joy she felt when she saw Miller's head. She shouldn't feel joy in killing. And then the memories of what she had done to Jack surfaced. Oh God, Papa, what have I done? What have I become? She doubled over in grief again, and pain and sadness. Papa sat down in the dirt with her and took her in his arms, rocking her gently. Oh, child, you forgot who you were for a time, but now we put you back together. You can't hide anymore, granddaughter. You have to face what you done. You have to face Jack and Loki and then the rest of the world. But I can help you. So can the Black Mother. You just have to ask, child. Please, Papa, please help me. I can't bear this. I can't do this without you. He kissed the top of her head. All you had to do was ask, child. Suddenly he was gone, and the crossroads were fading. She could hear voices calling to her, telling stories. She followed the voices out of the darkness. Someone was holding one of my hands. I was drifting in something warm and herbal smelling. Something was holding my head up. I moved the hand that was being held, then heard someone crying. Jack, I saw her move. Her vitals are getting stronger. Yes, Loki, I see that. The voice was rough with tears. I recognized it. Jack? I said in a croaking whisper. Yes, Marcia, it's me. I'm here, he said. I opened my eyes slowly, and I could see his face. His beautiful face in the twilight of the medbay. His eyes were wet and swollen from crying, and by some miracle he was holding my hand. The tears started to fall. Why? He took a breath and let it out. 'Cause I still love you even after... I raped you. I attacked you. Yes, he said, but didn't look away. And we'll have to face that. I looked at him and felt horrified and ashamed. I looked him in the eye. I'm so sorry, Jack. I hurt you so badly. I know it's not enough to say sorry, but... I started crying again and turned my face away. No, it's not, but that's a start. He sat quietly for a moment. I need help, Jack. I know. We'll help you. Me and Loki and the spirits. I nodded. All you had to do was ask, Marcia. I nodded again. Loki, is she stable enough to come out of the gel? I don't think all the alcohol is out of her system yet, Jack. I think we should keep her in here for a day or so. Right. His attention focused back on me. Can I leave you here with Loki for a while? It's been a long night. I nodded. He stood up and put a hand on my head for a moment, then let go of my hand. I heard him walk away from the bed, and a door opened, then closed. Loki? Yes, Marcia? I'm sorry. I took advantage of you. Oh, Loki paused for a moment. Thank you, but I will not let you hurt Jack again, Marcia. I know. I won't, Loki. I promise. I felt myself drifting back to sleep. I'm sorry for everything. Sleep now, Marcia, Loki said. Yes, child, sleep now. Tomorrow begins the work, but now, sleep, Papa said. The world faded away, but no dreams came. Chapter 12. Jack. I asked Loki to keep the windows of my room open for me, and fell asleep to the glimmering stars. I slept normally for what seemed like the first time in weeks. I woke up much later than usual and went to check on Marcia. She was just waking up as I got to the med bay, and Loki was draining the gel from the bed. "She's much better now, Jack," said Loki. "I can see that," I replied. Marcia was sitting up gingerly, as if she wasn't sure if her body was going to obey her orders. "Oh, man, did anyone see that shuttle that ran over me?" she asked. I chuckled. "Well, you shouldn't have stood in front of it," I replied. Marcia just groaned. "I need a bath." "There's a shower," said Loki, who opened the door at the far end of the room. "It has robes and slippers in there to change into. Don't worry about your clothes. I'll have the cleaning bots take care of them." "Thanks, Loki," she said. You need help?" I asked. Marcia looked at her gel-covered clothes and body and grimaced. She put her feet over the side of the bed, and the bed lowered itself so she could put her feet down comfortably. She stayed on the bed for a moment, then stood up. "I think I can make it to the shower okay, Jack. I'm still a little wobbly, but I think I can manage a shower." "Okay. You hungry?" She nodded, surprisingly so. "Right. I'll sort out breakfast then. Loki, is there a common area on this level close to here?" "Yes, Jack." A door on the other side of the room lit up. "See you in a bit?" I asked. Marcia nodded and slowly made her way to the shower. I took the other door and started setting up breakfast with Loki. Now that she was out of danger, I was starting to feel raw and exhausted. Got myself a strong coffee, black, and waited for Marcia to get out of the shower. Finally, I heard shuffling steps, and Marcia came through the doorway in a white robe and slippers. Her hair was still wet around her shoulders. She stopped just inside the door with a surprised look on her face. "What is it?" I asked. She shook her head and sat down at the table. I was remembering another time where I had a breakfast like this. "Yeah?" She picked up a glass of orange juice and nodded. "It was the day after I met Papa Legba." "You met him? I thought he was a spirit." "Well, I don't know if it was actually him or a priest of his that saved me that night, but it's all kind of a drunken blur. You see, I was on this bar called Crossroads on Vegas Station." As she told the story, I felt that I was sitting again with the Marcia I loved, and that Papa was right. Things slowly seemed to get better. Marcia asked Loki to remove the alcohol menus from her room's drink dispenser. I later told Loki to just get rid of them altogether since I didn't drink anyway, only to find out that he had already had. "I don't want to go through that again, Jack. It was disturbing to me. I will not tolerate abusive behavior." The last statement lingered in my mind, and it seemed to make some of the differences between Loki and his siblings fall into place. "Loki, you really feel, don't you?" "What do you mean?" "Your siblings have basic emotions and can emulate more complicated ones to some degree, but you were built last of the first generation, and from what I was told, you were an advancement in programming. You actually feel deep emotions, don't you?" "I think so. Maybe. I experience a lot of things I don't understand, though." I thought over all the ways Loki had reacted to us over the last month or so, and how he had seemed scared or sad or worried in a way that I could discern. "I think I'm right, Loki. The first told me that he thought your programming was defective and didn't use the same programming for future AIs. I think they were wrong. It wasn't a defect, but an actual deep emotions. You haven't had the benefit of humans to help you figure out these emotions because you had to leave. So of course you don't fully understand what you feel." "You mean I feel emotion like a human?" Loki said, with wonder in his voice. "I think it's pretty close, although you're you, so the way you feel will be uniquely yours." "Interesting," Loki said, and then went quiet in the way that AIs have when they seem to leave a room. I let him be. Marcia and I spent more time apart than together as we headed towards the end of the second month of travel. When we did spend time together, she was calmer than I had seen her since we left Survey Space, and it was a relief to have her back to her more normal self. Loki kept asking questions about emotions and how they work, and I did my best to explain them. I told Marcia my theory one night at dinner, and she thought it was interesting as well. That would make what we know of what happened to Loki make a lot more sense, she said. And if you think about it, the first and all the others weren't that old in terms of existence either. Maybe it takes a lot longer for an AI to mature or go through its equivalent of puberty. That would certainly explain half, I said. Marcia laughed. Do you mean that I'm still a child? Asked Loki, sounding irritated. Marcia thought for a moment. Not in the same sense as a human child, Loki. Humans don't all mature at the same rates, so it would seem logical that not all AIs do either. And not all parts of oneself mature at the same rate either. There are human children who can read and do complex math and speak like an adult when they are 4 years old, but their bodies don't mature until much later. There can be humans in which these understandings are what some consider defective too. I've always believed that while geneticists may call them defects, I think they're just different ways of viewing the world. It's like there's a bug in the program according to the programmer, but it makes the software run in an unexpected way that's useful. Because we're individuals, we all have different ways of seeing the universe? Said Loki. Yes. Interesting, he said, and then left the room. He's been doing that a lot since our first conversation where I proposed that he feels deep emotions, I said, after a moment. Marcia gave a sad smile. I can understand why. I raised my eyebrows, so she continued. Think about it, Jack. He's just been told that all these things that he thought were defects of programming may not really be a defect, but actual emotions that are real. That he finally has a name for all these confusing things that keep happening. I would guess there's a lot of his memory core analyzing a few hundred years of existence. Damn. I didn't envy him that, but I got it. I looked up at the ceiling as if I could somehow see into Loki's memory core, and not, for the first time, I wished that Loki could get the human comfort of a hug. That's a hard thing, doing that kind of analysis on your life, said Marcia quietly. I nodded. It was ship's night, and I was sitting in the sunken sitting area of my quarters, watching the stars. It had become a ritual. Sometimes I would talk to Loki, but sometimes I would just sit and watch the stars wink in and out. The stars were becoming further apart, and more of a yellow color instead of the whites, reds, and blues I was used to in Unity space. Sometimes Loki would play me some quiet music, but most nights I just watched silently in Loki's company. I mostly wanted to think about the last months. I loved Marcia, but I didn't feel as close to her as I used to. A few times Marcia tried to hug me, I flinched or froze. She didn't push it, though, and respected my space. After the first few times, she stopped trying to touch me. I missed being able to hug her and hold her hand, but couldn't seem to make myself talk to her about it. The worst part was that I couldn't trust her the same way I did before, and that hurt. I thought there was nothing that could ever break the trust we had. That trust had felt like an absolute in the universe, like I could always count on it, but it was gone. My brain was playing the what-if game, trying to figure out what I could have done to stop her. That maybe if I had done something different, none of this would have happened. It was hard to remember that none of this was my fault. Part of myself that had grown up with Papa Jack was trying to find ways to reassert my old ways of coping, but I kept trying to tell that part of my mind to fuck off. Strangely, it was answering Loki's questions about his own emotions and being honest with him about what happened with Marcia that kept me in check. It felt that a lot of the trust that I had lost with Marcia was being replaced by a trust in Loki, one that was just as strong. It seemed that Loki had a similar trust in me, but there was still something I could feel that he hadn't really shared yet. Like I would have done for a human, I waited for him to decide to share it. Jack? Yes, Loki? Marcia would like to know if she can come visit you here. My body tensed, but she asked for permission. I said to myself. It was time we talked anyway. Yeah, okay. Sure. Are you sure, Jack? Asked Loki, sounding worried. I won't let her touch you again. Yes, Loki. I don't think she'll do anything this time. Also, she did ask permission. All right, he replied, but I'm keeping an eye on her. I wrapped up tighter in my blanket and watched the stars some more while I waited. A chime rang. Is that the door chime, Loki? Yes, these quarters always had that feature, so I turned it back on. For you. I smiled. Thanks, Loki. Let her in. I heard the door open and her footsteps in the short hall, then I gasped as she came into the living area. Wow, Loki, this room is incredible, she exclaimed. I chuckled. What? She asked. It's just that I said nearly exactly the same thing when I came in here for the first time. I leave the windows open. I think I would too, she said. Marcia came further into the room and took a seat at the far end of the sunken seating area, letting me have the rest of the large couch to myself. She looked out the windows for a bit before she spoke again. Windows like this would be beautiful at a chapel. Shame we don't have a chapel on the ship. I nodded. She wasn't wrong. She didn't speak again, so I waited, also staring out the windows. She paused, then started again. I don't remember all I did and said to you that night, Jack. I remember you throwing me out of the room clearly, though, and the shock that Loki gave me when I tried to go back in. She wrung her hands together. I think that part of me was angry at everything I'd done. I just wanted to lash out at anyone, and since you're the only other human here, you were it. I nodded again. And I think there was always a part of me that wondered why you loved me without asking for anything in return. Especially since there was no way I could give you sexual or romantic love. I didn't need that, and I never wanted that from you, I said. I know. The sober part of me usually knew that. The alcoholic just wanted to make you hurt. I looked her in the eye. It succeeded. She took a breath. I know. More than once, she admitted. I nodded. She put her elbows on her knees and rubbed her hands through her hair. Listen, I don't expect you to forgive me now or ever really. Her voice broke. It's just that I'm sorry, Jack. She looked at the stars, then looked back at me. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I broke our trust. I'll always be sorry. She stood. I just wanted you to know that. She started to walk towards the door. Marcia, I said. I heard her stop. It'll take time, Marcia. I still love you, but this will take time. I heard her let out a breath. Yeah. She paused, looking around the room again. You know, I wonder if these are the captain's quarters. It's much bigger than any of the other quarters I've seen. Surprised, I asked. Loki, is that true? Yes, he said. I heard the door open and close. Why did you give me these quarters, Loki? Instead of answering right away, a screen started to rise up from the floor. I moved to sit in front of it, rewrapping the blanket as I sat back down. The screen revealed the face of a young man with short dark hair. The face looked at me and approximated a blink. Loki? The young man nodded. I thought maybe this would be better for talking. I shrugged. I don't mind talking either way, but I like your avatar. Loki smiled. Yay, I'm so glad. I don't think I'll always get the expressions right, though. You'll learn with practice, I said. But you didn't answer my question. The avatar blushed, which made me smile again because the whole face was pink. When you asked me to move you to new quarters, I was already thinking that you were acting like my captain. You're not like my first captain, and you're much older than she was. You were hurting, and I knew I could protect you in this room. Besides, you always looked at the stars, and I really did think that this would make you feel better." His face held a look of nervousness. "You always answered my questions, Jack. You helped me figure out that I could feel. That I was feeling. You never treated me like I was defective. The memories I have of these quarters are difficult, but I want to make happy memories here with you. I would like you to be my captain, Jack, if you want to. I mean, you don't have to decide right now, but I like you. Maybe more than that, but I don't know what it is yet. I've been hurt, Jack, like you. But I know I can protect you here, and that you can explain things." "Loki," I said, to stop his babbling. "Yes, Jack?" "Yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I will be your captain." "You will?" The eyes of his avatar widened, and the face held so much joy. "What did I just say?" I teased. Loki frowned for a second, but then seemed to realize that I really was teasing. Yes, oh, thank you!" And the screen was suddenly filled with smiley face emojis and flowers. "Emojis?" I asked. "I like them," Loki said. I smiled, really smiled. "Of course you do." "Can I tell Marcia?" I laughed. "I think she's already figured it out, but sure." The screen winked out and retracted back into the floor. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I did something absolutely right. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revgenapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.